Hey, folks, welcome back. It's another rendition of the Mark and David show. We've got our regular drumbeat of stats and insights for you. I think this is going to be a good one. I got some good questions for David. I think they're good. He has no idea, so my objective is to try and trip him up. Which, if anyone who knows David, is increasingly hard to do. But
Appreciate that, Mark. I'm looking forward to the lightning round of questions from you.
Awesome.
Fire away.
First off, David, can you tell me about the August 2022 results in a nutshell?
Yeah. So top line numbers, which again include pickup, delivery, and ship to home, down just under 1% versus year ago to about 8.5 billion. So again, down very slightly. We could essentially say flat. One of the things we talked about in the press release is let's step back and not just look at it versus year ago or even 2020, but pre-COVID. And we're still 4x higher than where we were. And the key point is for the last 3 years, although we've had some slight fluctuations in those sales, we're still at an extremely high elevated level that doesn't show any near-term signs of weakening considerably from here going forward.
And I saw the grocery dive right up on the share today, and I'm glad they picked up. They led with the number 1% drop, but I think they even reinforced the notion that this is definitely changed behavior.
Yeah, I mean, well, when you think about it, it was March of 2020 we started in this pandemic, the second half of March. Now we're in September of 2022. Yeah. So good 2.5 years in, we didn't need this much time to establish this persistent behavior, but it's only become more entrenched the longer it's been drawn out. And that's what we're continuing to see. And again, as we talked about last month, if you remember, Mark, we did say that we estimate that approximately 10% of the monthly active users are still influenced to varying degrees by concern about COVID. But we also said that if you looked at those households that were not at all concerned with COVID, our baseline is at 36%. So, that is just indicative of how sticky this has become. But at the same time, it's important to point out that it's complementing the main way people still shop for groceries, which is in store.
So, David, I think that's a good segue into my next question. So what do you know now that you didn't know 3 years ago when you did the August 2019 assessment?
What we know now that we didn't know in August 19, in fact, what we didn't even know in March of 2020 when we were doing 5-year plans with retailers, was what was just around the corner and how dramatic and rapid and really impactful on a long-lasting basis COVID would be, right? I mean, I don't think anyone would have predicted that level of usage or trial, at least, in the last 3 years from 2019 to today, So we didn't expect to have these many people online, let alone try online shopping. So when you step back and look at it, you really have to remember the importance of being agile and responsive to these changing circumstances. What happens next, based on what we've learned, is anyone's guess. The likelihood of us having another black swan event of the scale and magnitude of COVID next year is obviously pretty low, but I don't know how many people anticipated the disruption that the war in Ukraine has had either. So we just need to be prepared to respond rapidly to the ever evolving world that we live in, and it's become much more complicated.
And to that point, to the complicated aspect to digital grocery and omnichannel sales, you're speaking to a retailer, a regional, and you may be thinking, this is getting pretty consistent month after month. And, he or she is wondering, how is this relevant to my day-to-day operation? I'm getting a good, steady upbeat of online sales. My customers are happy. Uh, what what is the critical thing that they should be taking away from these insights as we continue to produce them?
Well, first of all, I think the first point I would say is make sure you're leveraging these insights, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get the outside perspective. What we know from our benchmarking work, as you know, Mark, if we were to rely only on our internal data points to help us see where the business is, we would get one view of the world. What we need to do is expand our visibility into that world, because what we will see are other things. For instance, many grocers still skew towards delivery on a share basis, whereas the market skews towards pickup. And the reason why we have this kind of incongruity is mass really skews toward pickup. So if you're only looking at your internal numbers, you're kind of on this self-fulfilling, cycle where you're not taking advantage of market opportunities or sensing the threats. So, one of the reasons we look at that is we have seen in the macro view this acceleration or share gains with delivery. Now, there's a variety of circumstances driving that.
Mm-hmm.
And we would want to understand those and put them in context to our own business to then determine, well, what does that mean to us, so that we can have a better discussion or debate about what to do with that information, right? Because information and data points aren't insights until we put it in context. And then we have knowledge that we can then test and learn how that applies.
So let's unpack that, because I was curious, because we had been looking at the split between pickup and delivery, staying pretty well stable for the last 12 months plus. But when you look at the delivery numbers for August, I think they came in at 41%, up 8%. Is that attributable to the mass merchants doing more direct delivery?
Mass still skews toward pickup,
Yeah.
but mass is changing some aspects of their delivery, notably in Walmart relative to their white label partners.
Yep.
But more of the activity is occurring outside of mass. I mean, think about the expansion into other grocery-related channels like pet or other home furnishings that would fall under our definition of grocery, which are categories that fall within the store. Mm-hmm. That increases the availability of shopping those type of stores here. So that has an effect on that. We also have a rapid growth in the extreme value channel, which we would refer to as dollar stores. Mm-hmm. And dollar stores actually skews quite heavily towards delivery. So as the market's shifting for ways to not pay more than necessary, that's affecting it. In addition to, we have relatively new players that we've talked about offline that are investing heavily in growing share, right? Which means they're coming in with some very aggressive programs that are very appealing to the retailers because they're less expensive than what they're currently paying. So that is also opening up other marketplaces or, aggregation sites to make it easier for people to shop this way. But that's all on the delivery side. At the same time, we still see a high degree of backfilling going on in pickup. Mm-hmm. We are nowhere near the level of distribution with pickup as we are with delivery. And at the same time, grocers, again, keep in mind, most grocers actually see a bias toward delivery versus pickup. But that's a function of, their structure and their focus up to this point. So one of the things that pickup is lacking is the same level of inertia around innovation or expansion that delivery has. But part of that's driven by the outside players who are motivated to invest to grow that part of the business.
Awesome. Yeah, I think you just unpacked that in really great detail. So I appreciate that. Yeah, you had mentioned the dollar channel. At least the dollar retailer, and I think it was up 80%.
Yeah, it's huge, but it's coming off a small base, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've been tracking dollar for a couple years. We started to share that information in our monthly report not too long ago, earlier this year, I think. And so year over year, they saw a 75% bump in the monthly active users. But again, that means they're up to now about 1 million users in aggregate for the channel during the month of August. Put that in comparison to grocery. Grocery, I think, would be around 37, and mass would be maybe 44 million. So again, large relative growth off a small absolute base.
And do you see dollar moving towards pickup, or are they going to be wholly still within the delivery channel?
Well, yeah, to answer that question, I really just look at how most retailers have entered the business of competing online.
Mm-hmm.
And again, keep in mind, they went online primarily, long ago, they were already doing ship to home. That was kind of already embedded in their models with someone like a Dollar General. But when they moved into the delivery pickup sphere, they moved in with delivery first. Not very different than the way most retailers did. So I think as they run through their first S curve, growing their delivery, and as they become more experienced and knowledgeable in this area, they too, like so many other retailers, will understand the importance of offering choice. And as a result, will not only backfill their stores and offering the pickup, but will also begin to promote it more aggressively as opposed to simply leading with delivery. I can't tell you exactly where they're at right now. We really haven't focused that intently there.
Mm-hmm.
They still have a much smaller basket. They're probably half the size of the grocery channel's basket, if not less than that. But that's, again, a reflection of where they are in the stage and how consumers shop with them.
Very good. So, David, is there a question that I haven't asked you yet that I should for August?
No, I guess, you asked me a lot of questions, Mark, and you're out there talking to retailers as much as I am, if not more. And obviously, you're on the solution side. What are you hearing from retailers, given everything that's going on today?
We're hearing pretty much the same as you can probably imagine. Delivery remains a prominent, popular receiving method for a lot of regionals. They are interested in growing their curbside. They're asking very tactical questions when it comes to how to set up a good curbside operation. We're seeing a lot of experimentation. We just came back from out west, where we visited a retailer who's blending, store remodeling with an automated MFC,
I think
as an adjunct to the store.
And I think at least the store that you visited did curbside quite literally just outside the door of the store. And I think, we'll see more of that, because when you look at the operational costs associated with delivering a pickup order, so bringing it from the store staging area to the vehicle, the main component besides retrieving the order, assembling it, is the walk time from the staging area to the customer, right? And when you recognize the costs associated with that, not just one-way trip, but the two-way round trip,
yep,
you can see the motivation that retailers will have to move that transfer point, the pickup spot where the customer is closer to the staging area, right?
It was automated conveyor to staging. Staging was a matter of 5 steps to the curb.
And I think
had a drive-in style setup.
Yeah. So when you look at that, the speed of the service, the time associated with supporting the service from the retail side, there's a win-win there, right? Shorter wait times and less manpower requirements from the retailer. That takes time to structurally change, because you need to make, physical improvements to an existing store, maybe have an addition or renovate. And again, there's a lot that goes into that, as the retailers know. But I think as you look at this, that's one of those areas. And I'm glad you pointed out the conveyor. That automation is something even Mass has been testing, relative to their pickup business. So you can see that pickup has a lot of opportunities to improve the experience and the operational aspects. And when you overlay, and I know this goes into some of the other work that Mercatus is doing that we're supporting, really goes into how do you leverage the pickup service based on the strategic value that it offers beyond just the economic value that it offers, right? And so I think the smart retailers, the progressive retailers, recognize that and are really investing into the pickup. but that's a much longer, slower kind of march because, again, so much of the focus, both externally in media
Yeah.
and just in general, is on delivery, and still the notion of faster delivery. And as you know, Mark, we are trying to provide evidence and insights to the grocery retailers as to what makes sense for your business based on your customers in this context, and what's a better alternative than necessarily following the mass EDLP player, over the cliff.
Exactly. And I think a lot of it is you start with the fundamentals. Who are your customers? How do they want to shop? What options can you provide based on the way your business is operating? So for delivery and for pickup. And at the end of the day, keep your eyes on your customers as opposed to what your competitors are doing. I know it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, but if you do right by your customers, the business will take care of itself.
Well, a perfect example is the news that speculated on Walmart's change in their substitution practice.
Yes.
Which is now, if there's a product that's out of stock, the customer will pay the price of the substituted product as opposed to the lower of the two prices. That makes sense within their context and their customer engagement strategy and their business model. Now, if we are just going to be fast followers, then we are going to imitate that approach. Or we could look at this as, well, one of our differentiators is our service, our quality of service, our customer service. And so for many grocers, while there may be a merchandising tendency to use this opportunity to mitigate any potential cost that leaks out with that substitution, the marketer side would say, no, we still want to make the customer right and whole, and acknowledge that the alternative was acceptable to them, but as a thank you, we're just ensuring that they realize that they're not going to pay more than they have to. That's going to be a choice that each and every retailer will need to make, but they should make it within the context of understanding their customer, because as you know, Mark, the research Mercatus has been doing, that BMC has been supporting separate from this, shows that the number one reason why someone will go to a mass discounter, without question, overwhelmingly, is because of low prices. However, when you look at the grocery customers, the overwhelming reason they go to them is because it's conveniently located. So you can see convenience trumps price, right? There's a trade-off. Someone's willing to drive farther to save more when they shop with mass for a variety of reasons, good or bad. But other people are opting to shop with a grocer because it's just easier. It's more convenient. So if we embrace that, then we would say our customers expect different things from us than from them. So why should we do the same thing as them? Because
100%.
That's not us.
100%. I do want to tell you, so the conveyor, when we saw the setup, I did recall from my childhood, there was a retailer in our neighborhood, a Canadian retailer called Dominion. It is
not the voting machines, though.
No,
unless
no,
maybe they got into the voting machines.
No. Later acquired by Metro.
Okay.
But it was the red plastic totes that were filled at the end of the aisle, stuck on a rolling conveyor belt to a racking system right outside where you would drive up, and the groceries would be put into the trunk of your car. And that was in the late 70s. So.
Well, I in the 70s, I remember our local grocery store, before it was remodeled, it's in part of a national banner now, we had what they called parcel pickup. And we had a drive-up place with an overhang where you would pull up. The bagger will have brought your cart out from inside, and to your point, would have loaded it into your car. Now, we still have a fire lane that has the words parcel pickup painted there, but no one uses it that way anymore. In fact, now the pickup spots are over in the parking lot, maybe 20, 30 yards further. So, what is old is new again.
Exactly.
Exactly. And so we've been here, and people appreciate that. And in many ways, that's why people shop at certain stores, is because they value the extra elements of that experience, whether it's the quality product or the quality service or some other aspect, right? Other than simply low cost.
And it was conveniently located in the neighborhood, 5-minute drive from the house.
Exactly.
Yep. Awesome. David, I appreciate your time as always. Look forward to connecting with you next month. I know we've got some exciting content and insights coming out very shortly. Looking forward to getting that into the hands and the digital hands of our shared clientele.
Exactly, Mark. I'm looking forward to it as always.
All right. Take care, my friend.
I will. You too.